Jim, I'll wave you on as we go. This will be my breaking point here before I go off. I know, trust me, I broke long ago. But before we head off on to vacation, and I wanted to save this story for this moment here, as before I will give you 3 weeks with 3 wonderful preachers. There was a man named Clinton Clark. He had a dream. Clark dreamed of a high trail that wound down from the heights of our western mountains, and in 1926 he proposed what would become the Pacific Crest Trail. Now, it took until 1968 before Clark's dream became official, and then in 1993 it became finished, whatever that means. The PCT, as you'll hear me call it, the Pacific Crest Trail, is forever a work in progress, which is also what you could say about many of those folks who set out to hike it. 5,000 hikers set out each year. They hope to complete the 2,650-mile trek. No more than 50 are allowed to start the journey on any given day so as to protect the ecology and the beauty. As they go, they attempt to travel through 4 distinct climate zones. The journey usually takes anywhere between 4 to 6 months. Now, about 700 to 800 hikers make it all the way to mile marker 2650, which somewhere in there is between 10 to 15%. Most hike south to north. They call it northbound. They leave from around the U.S.-Mexico border and journey upwards towards Canada, where the trail ends. And so the wisdom there is if you start south and go north, you avoid the problem of going the other direction, which is most certainly running into bitter cold and fast-falling snow in the Cascades National Park. Now, the most well-known of all of the PCT hikers of late is a solo hiker named Cheryl Strayed. She hiked northbound. She set out from the Mojave Desert in the spring of 1995, and she didn't go all the way. She walked 1,100 miles, nothing to scoff at, the entire length of the California journey. What brought Cheryl out to the Pacific Crest Trail is not uncommon among the many who set out to reach the terminus, the end of this journey, but the end of more than just this trail. Cheryl set out solo, lugging the monster, is what she called her 40-pound backpack. The monster, though, was an apt description, though, for more than just her backpack, for all she carried. Beyond all the bedrolls and blister pads, Cheryl carried the weight of a spirit that had been broken. She carried with her the hardships that were always far heavier than her backpack. On her shoulders went a lifetime. It walked with her out onto the trail. Her demons were her traveling companions, and mile after mile, Cheryl found out she could lighten her load. Shedding weight from her backpack, from her soul, from her very self, perhaps like an offering given to the trail, Cheryl shed her shame and pain and left it there. Some of you, I heard nodding. Yeah, I'll stick with that. When I mentioned her name, she recorded her transformation, Cheryl Strayed did, writing the bestseller Wild, From Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail. She published it in 2012. 2 years later, it was turned into a movie starring Reese Witherspoon. Cheryl Strayed is chiefly responsible for what is called the Wild effect. Before the book and the movie, the PCT was kind of a niche adventure at best. Before 2012, maybe 700 people sought to hike. No more than that was ever issued in a single year. Before 2012, about 700. 2013, 2,000. 2019, where it stands today, nearly 8,000 hikers. The Wild effect, as it's called, has given birth to this modern PCT and the dramatic increase in solo hikers like Cheryl who may or may not be prepared. And if you and I were to use theological language, perhaps you and I would say that Cheryl out there on the PCT found a space where she encountered awe and wonder, different than home or life. Perhaps we could call that a thin space. A space where you feel as close as you've ever been to just the other side of the veil, just that close to being to the divine. Since 2012, thousands of hikers have set out north or southbound. They've been attracted to the journey, to the adventure, and to who they might become along the way. I think it's like the biblical story of Jacob. Jacob wrestles with the angel, wrestles with God. It's the hardships. The ordeal leaves him forever with a limp, but it also leaves him with a new name. Jacob, previously a scoundrel, a cheat, but when the ordeal was over by daylight, Jacob was renamed Israel. Chris Fowler hiked northbound. 34 years old. He's roughly from 2,450 miles away in Ohio. I mention this, of course, because Chris sought to go further on the PCT than he traveled from Ohio to get there. Seeking to leave the old self behind, he wanted to go beyond. He's divorced, without an anchor in the world. Chris made his way down to the southern terminus, set out to see where the trail would take him. Chris Fowler started the trail, but Sherpa was the one who hiked it. The PCT has a tradition of bestowing a hiker name on those who travel, on those who hike. Nobody goes by Steve or Brenda. A name is given to you out on the trail. Chris was renamed. Chris was reborn as Sherpa. He was named after an act of kindness he showed his fellow hikers. He showed them the best way to find what they needed. Sherpa led them there. And Sherpa thrived on the trail. Sherpa was appreciated. He was respected. He was valued. He was seen. He even found love there. Everything he lacked, everything Chris lacked in Ohio, Sherpa found on the PCT. Fellow northbound hikers knew him by name. And even those who didn't knew him as the thru hiker who wore sandals. Sandals. He said he wanted to feel the trail under his feet. Sherpa set out on Mother's Day 2016. He sent photos to Mom when the signal strength allowed it. These photos you see on the screen today, that's him. That's Chris. These are the photos he sent his mom. For 5 months, for some 2,100 miles, Mom, living back in Beaver Creek, Ohio, did not worry. My mom lives in Beaver Creek, Ohio, too. Hi, Mom. Somewhere along the journey, somewhere in the state of Washington, Sherpa got pretty sick. He rested, but he was zealous. His life was there, one step in front of the other. Out on the trail, he pressed on. He was nowhere near 100%. Friends and strangers all tried to convince him to rest, to stay. He would not. The woods of White Pass in the Washington Cascade Ranges is known to be a cold and dark place in October. The photo there, the largest of the bunch, was taken on October 12, 2016. Sherpa walked into those woods and was never seen or heard from again. As of today, it's been 3,218 days. 9 years, 8 months, 18 days since that day, and all that Sally Fowler wants to do is bring Sherpa home. The official search for Sherpa actually ended a long, long time ago. There are missing hiker posters describing Chris and his gear. They dot the mountain and the trailheads and at the places hikers tend to congregate. It describes his sandals and his orange backpack as ways he might stand out because his description does not. It turns out that tall, skinny, bearded white guys are a dime a dozen on the PCT. Sally started a Facebook page to spread the word, both helpful and absolutely hellish. It brought out the very best and the very worst of the PCT, as it often does, and Sally waded through them all. The most promising tip, though, came from a pair of bear hunters who swore they met Sherpa out on a trail shortly after the last day of contact in October. And so, with their story, with their information, a location was plotted based on those hunters' story, and volunteers were gathered, and nothing turned up. Kathy Tarr was about the only one who thought that the bear's hunter story was total nonsense. It didn't add up, she said. Sherpa looked like almost everyone else, and the timeline was wrong. All of it didn't add up, but as you know, hope is such a powerfully strong drug, and no one was listening to this retired corporate manager whose theories they shot down so willingly around the campfire. Nobody believed Kathy Tarr, not even Morgan Clements at first. Morgan is a digital map maker from Missouri. He tried to hike the PCT a couple years ago, but he got injured. After hearing about Sherpa, he could not get him off his mind. He traveled out to Washington to help a search. Morgan needed a ride. Kathy Tarr picked him up. Two different people you'd be hard to find, but united in a desire to bring Sherpa home. They didn't need to agree in everything, just this. To Morgan, Tarr confessed her doubts about the bear hunters. And to appease her, he said when he got back home, he'd take a look. It wasn't long after returning to Missouri that Morgan believed Kathy. He took a look. The pair of hunters weren't on the trail that day. The day they swore to see they saw Sherpa, how did he know? Facebook. One of the hunters posted a photo from the University of Washington football game. How do you find the lost? Our parable gives us an answer, only one. How do you find the lost? You do something. You search. You try. The woman in the parable, she does what she can, right? She lights the lamp, she sweeps wall to wall, and she searches carefully until she finds it. The woman searches for the coin, knowing that it is there. It's somewhere. She will look for as long as it takes. The imagery of the parable is the restless ministry of Christ who searches for what is lost. The woman will not give up searching carefully until she finds what is found. Sherpa is still missing, and Kathy Tarr is committed to finding him. She's a retired former corporate officer for the Walgreens Corporation. She did that before she sold her house and took to the road and started this, what became her life's work. You might ask, well, what special skills or traits or God-given abilities does Kathy have that she brings to bear upon her mission? And the answer is only that she chooses to do so. She chooses to search carefully until she finds what is lost. Corporate life made her savvy, so, she understands bureaucratic realities and all that, and that there are many. But mostly, she chooses not to give up until he is found. As I mentioned, Missouri Morgan Clemens is a map maker. He spends 8 hours a day in his at-home office basement. He has turned an interest into a full-time job. His clients, his contracts number among the U.S. Armed Forces. What is his special skill? He'll tell you he doesn't have one, other than he has a flexible schedule, other than he has the ability to, if he chooses, to volunteer 8 hours a day in front of his 8 computer monitors that makes up his workspace. What does Morgan have? How will Morgan help bring Sherpa home? Morgan has the willingness to search. He scours online realities and social media, bank records and back records. The Western States Aerial Search Team. It sounds like something straight out of a Tom Clancy novel, but oh boy, it is not. Some of these guys built their own drones, and some modified the ones that you and I could buy. These hobbyists program their drones to fly a grid over some of the most inhospitable landscape the western states has to offer. They fly systematically overhead. The drones capture thousands of high-resolution images that would have been otherwise impossible to obtain. They don't accept rewards. If there are any, they won't accept payments. They pay their own way. They offer vacation days and paid time off and weekends and long hours in the van out into the wilderness. This team of hobbyists, this team of volunteers, they are the very epitome of the parable of searching carefully. Like the woman at home searching wall to wall, like the drones that fly through every canyon, down into every ravine, up the steep slopes, down the mountain sides, because it is only by searching carefully that you ever will find what is lost, what is valuable, what has immense worth to the one who chooses to search for it. The Western States Aerial Team on the website says, all of their resources are used to search for your loved ones because it matters to you, and it matters to them too. And so, like Kathy and Morgan, what do these drone pilots have? Only that they're passionate. Only that they found a way to channel what they love into doing good in the world, but most of all, like everyone else, they are willing. To date, drone piloting surveys is among the most successful methods in finding what is lost, and they claim among many recovered hikers. But lastly, my favorite are the squinters. Missouri mapmaker Morgan was the first squinter, but now there's hundreds across the country. To give you a sense, recently a drone team captured over 7,000 photos. Each one needs to be scoured, each one needs to be searched, each one needs to be reviewed. And artificial intelligence will be the way this work is done in the future, but today, it's people like you and me who search carefully. People like you and me, we are the squinters. We are those among them who are willing to look and to search, because squinting is what we can do. I can't fly a drone, but I can look carefully. I can zoom in and out. I can make notes. I can leave no photo to chance. If you go onto the Western States Aerial Team website right now, there is a link that you can fill out online to become a squinter too. And what are the qualifications necessary? Well, do you have a computer? Do you have a monitor, preferably a bigger one? Do you have internet connection? They'll train you. Mostly, though, what you need is a willingness to squint, a willingness to search carefully, a willingness to do what you can so that someday, one day, Sally Fowler will be able to bring Sherpa home. One day, that day will come. It is not today. One day, Sally Fowler will be able to bring Sherpa home, but until that day, people like Kathy and Morgan and drone pilots and squinters alike will keep doing what they're doing until that day arrives. They will keep searching carefully. As much as the story is about Sherpa, Chris Fowler, the message today is about what people like you and I can do when we choose to do something. The entire search and rescue community, once the federals and the state and the forestry have had to abandon it, is wholly comprised of people like you and me. People who choose to do something. And I'll tell you, when Sherpa comes home, it will be because of people like you and me, who choose to search for what is lost carefully until, as it says, all that are lost have been found. Some estimates say that there are over 1,800 missing hikers in America's national parks today. How will they be found? When people like you and me choose to do something. Amen.